you a key. I'm ready. You ready? Okay. Hi everyone, it's Rainey from Oh So Simply, and today we are going to be talking all about doulas, what they are, who they are, how they work in our lives, and how we work together as nannies. We'll also be talking about some of the benefits of having a doula or becoming a doula, becoming certified. And yeah, we're going to go over all of that with our Birmingham doula, and I will let her go ahead and introduce herself.
Hi Rainey, thank you for having me on. I'm Lorna Phillip, otherwise known as Birmingham Doula. And maybe you could tell from my accent, I'm not from Birmingham, Alabama. I'm from Birmingham in the UK, in the West Midlands region. And so I work as a birth and postnatal doula all over Birmingham and the West Midlands region. It's kind of the heart of England, basically. And I'm here today to tell you all about what we do as doulas here in the UK.
So that is super exciting. I'm excited. Also, if you have any questions about doulas that we don't cover, go ahead and leave them down below in the comments. I recently did a live about being certified, having certifications behind your name as a nanny really adds value to you as a nanny. And so you're able to up your rates, you are able to get more families and get different experiences with families. And so that is why we're going to be talking about doulas and what that looks like today. So firstly, what does a doula do? Like what is a doula?
Okay, so what a doula is generally is it's a lay person. You know, you have midwives. So in the UK, we call them midwives, who will obviously help you to deliver your baby. But we are non-clinicians, so we don't examine women in labour. We don't do any kind of the drawing of blood and all that kind of stuff. We are what I call your comforter. We are a professional birth partner. So we actually get to meet you during your pregnancy, and we're your kind of one constant person all the way through your pregnancy, from the time that you book us all the way through to labour. So we come and we help you during labour. We offer more kind of, I suppose, emotional and practical care of the mother and partner. And also afterwards in the what we call the postnatal period, or what you call the postpartum period. We're there to support the families in different ways during that kind of tricky first few weeks with your newborn baby. So no examinations, no kind of clinical care. It really is the real emotional, the trustworthy, kind of the trusting relationship we make with couples. It's the stuff that research says makes a big impact on your birth experience. You can take one training to become both a birth and postnatal doula. If you want to kind of up the ante though with your postnatal doula practice, you can take additional training, additional postnatal doula training. But I just did the one training, which equipped me to do both. I actually have quite a long career in working with children and families. I qualified as a nursery nurse back in 1987, a long time ago. Yeah, so I've been working with families since then in various guises. So I am actually fully kind of experienced in working with pregnant women and the families, and also when they've had their newborn babies. So as a birth doula, our main kind of job is to prepare the couple or the woman for birth. So we go through birth physiology, what they can expect from their bodies during pregnancy and labour, how you can make things more comfortable for yourself. If there's a partner there, we can teach the partner also how to be a fantastic birth partner, the things to do and maybe not to do, and the things to say and maybe not to say. And of course, you're that constant person throughout, all the way through the pregnancy, all the way through the birth. And then as the postnatal doula, what we do is we come into the home, we come into the family's home, and we support and we nurture and we nourish that new family, however that may look. So for me, as a postnatal doula, the kind of things I do is to be that kind of reassuring, listening ear, being very non-judgmental. We don't offer advice as doulas, or we shouldn't be anyway. It really is about giving people evidence-based information that can help them make their own decisions and find their own pathway through birth and through the postpartum period. and we travel alongside that woman or the couple. We're not leading from the front. We're not leading them and advising them. We're saying, well, you know what, evidence says this and the current guidelines say that. You know, some families have tried this, but we're not about saying you must do it this way. When I had my children, we did it that way. We're not about that. It's very different to maybe having your mom or your auntie supporting you.
Yeah. So it sounds like I had an article back at the very beginning when I started doing blogging as a nanny, which was basically like kind of like the Ratatouille saying anyone can cook. I was like, anyone can nanny. Like if you put forth the effort, if you get the basic certifications, anyone can nanny. It sounds like there is a specific kind of personality that comes with that is required to become a doula. Do you think that's the case, or do you think it's kind of like you can learn certain traits or certain things like?
Yeah, because we're always learning. Even though I've been a doula now for about 9 years, every family I work with is different. Everybody brings their own, things, their own kind of worries or their own little baggage. So actually, I'm always learning. And actually, the doulas that I know are all very different in personality and experience and qualifications. What really makes a good doula, RAINEY, is somebody who can listen with an open heart and without judgment.
That's awesome.
Quite simple, right?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, that sounds like the biggest luxury of a pregnancy that you could have. Like I saw recently you posted on Instagram, you were giving mom and baby a massage. Like, I mean, baby was still in belly, but you were giving them little rubs. And I was like, well, that seems like great. It's like pregnancy spa day over there.
And the thing is, we deserve, when we're pregnant and when we're giving birth, we deserve all the care. These aren't luxuries. I want people to kind of expect and to demand. I know that not everyone has the money to pay for extra services of a doula or somebody to come around and give them a massage. But, even a partner can put a little rubbing on you, you don't have to have the specialized skills, just be very gentle, use lots of oil. But actually, we should be really kind of like bowing down to these people who are going to be giving birth because they go through a lot. We should be honoring them, actually.
Yeah, honestly, like I've been considering taking a doula training because I'm just seeing like an amazing gift to be able to give someone who's pregnant, because they're expected to do so much, and then like they're putting their body through so much, and emotionally they're going through so much, and like an outside perspective who's invested in just you and your well-being, and not like comes with the relationship that you have with them, and like all of the baggage that usually goes in those relationships, like with moms or aunties who are usually quite overbearing and mean well, of course, but usually come at it, pretty, let me just do it, which is not what new moms want. They need to figure it out for themselves, and they need to, learn, because they'll be caring for that kid well after mom and auntie leaves. And so, yeah, like having that doula, I feel like would be amazing.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, RAINEY. Actually, here in the UK, I think postnatal care is actually quite appalling, unless you can have a doula on board or a very understanding family member or a great partner. But actually, it's quite poor. And, you hear lots of moms having really great birth experiences in hospital, but where it falls down is on the postnatal ward, because they're so busy up there, and you've got like midwives run off their feet. They're looking after, how many women and babies at a time. So I always get phone calls from moms, quite distressing phone calls, saying, "My God, please, Lorna, just break me out of this place because I can't take another day. I'm trying to breastfeed, no one's helping me. The food's pretty poor. It's not great. It's not great." And I think actually we need a total overhaul of the postnatal system here, because it isn't good. And that box you were talking about, that's quite a new thing, the little baby box. And that was actually brought in because of safe sleeping. So trying to reduce the kind of, I suppose, the cot death SIDS rates here in the UK and other countries too. They were gifting new families with this box. It's a big kind of cardboard box. It did used to come with a lid when it first came out, but apparently they no longer give you the lid because some parents were putting the lid on with the baby inside.
No!
So it no longer comes with a lid, but what it comes with is there's like a little kind of thin mattress inside, and a few little kind of here in Birmingham, UK, it had like maybe some little bibs for the baby and little tiny little things. But in Scotland, I'm hearing they have better things in their boxes. They actually have baby carriers in there. You know, it's
Wow.
quite a big thing to put in it to give for free, you know, so it's quite variable across the country as to what you get in these boxes, but I haven't seen one for a long time. I'm not sure if they may have discontinued the scheme because I haven't seen one for a long time.
Yeah, I think I saw it came across in an ad, or someone was gawking about it or something, like someone from the States, because they're just like, what? That's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's interesting. So little disclaimer here that yes, I've been a nanny for 7 years, and I'm a nanny mentor and yada yada. But as far as the actual labor birthing process, I just know, like, I don't know a lot of anything, it's like I get most of what I know from that, which sounds really horrible, but from Call the Midwife. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah, well, I don't. People assume that as a doula, I'm always glued to like birth programs. I actually tend to avoid them because it's like going back to work. So I tend to not really get myself immersed in birth programs, and I've got loads of birth books that I lend to clients, but I don't read them, to be honest. I've got other things to do.
Yeah. Well, okay. So this is like, this show captured me from the moment because it's set back, a little bit ago anyways. So it's like, it feels, a little extra vintage, and I love their outfits and things, but also it's such a foreign concept because I visited London briefly, but other than that, I have no idea. Like, the countries that I've lived in and visited are Asian countries or South American countries. So for me, Europe is like the one where I'm like, I don't know, like, other than the Beatles, like I'm just very culturally inept when it comes to Europe in general.
So long ago.
I know. Well, but that's what I got. But so Call the Midwife for me was such an interesting thing because before that, I didn't even realize that midwifery was a thing that was still current, and that it actually is. There's quite a few midwife houses local to me. Like, I never would have guessed. But the more I started looking into midwifery, because then I was like, well, maybe that's something I would be interested in doing or learning more about. And I started finding all of the houses around me, and then realizing more and more of the nanny families that I've been with in recent times, because I get a lot of new moms. So they come, and I'm the first I'm the first caregiver other than mom who's been with the baby. And I usually get them 2 to 3 months old. And so that's where I show up. And so before that, I have no idea what's going on. And I recently started calling them, like, families I've worked with recently. And I'm like, did you use a midwife? And they're just like, yeah, of course. Oh, okay. Like, there's a lot of them that I didn't even know that was a thing. And here they are all using them. I'm just like, oh. So that's been really a learning curve for me. Is midwifery and doulas and a lot of pre-2-month-old baby part.
Right. Okay. So when you work with those families who have very young babies, paint me a picture. What's going on in the family? What's mom like? Is she kind of like trying to recover, or are they kind of like get up, a day after birth, I'm going jogging type moms? What's going on?
Yeah, I've got a variety. I will say for the most part, the moms that I usually have are forced to go back to work. So usually 2 to 3 month old babies, maternity leave is over. So moms are going back to work, and they are usually really distressed and distraught about leaving their baby so new, which I 100% understand. And it's why I love working with those families, because I feel like I'm able to reassure them. And I'm the kind of nanny that like sends constant videos and pictures while they're at work, because I know how hard that tie is and that break. And I usually do a lot of starting babies on bottles, starting them on sleep routines. Like they have no foundational anything because they're so little at that point. You're just kind of doing whatever they need or want at the time. It's usually quite a bit of chaos because they don't have a lot of time to prepare. So they usually are just healing up, if finished being healed, but they're usually just healing up, just separating from baby. Dad has usually been back to work from day like 4. So it's just like crazy how fast everything happens. So I usually, show up into a chaotic mess. And that's why a lot of my service is household management in general, because I end up doing a lot of like cleaning, setting up systems for meal prep, and all of the stuff that just kind of helps get the family back on their feet. Which is why when I started hearing about doulas, I was like, that kind of sounds like a lot of overlap with what I do, but less so of the emotional support. I usually come in more as a extension of mom's arm is usually what I consider it, because I do everything that mom does from the beginning, to the point where I get text messages from the dads like, hey, do you know where I left my keys? It's like that kind of extension where you're just like, why do you know this? Yeah, it's like, I'm not your wife, but as far as you're concerned, yeah, I packed your lunch, and yes, the keys are by the door. Like, I do know those things. But so that's kind of more of where my role comes in. So I would love to be able to recommend doulas to the families if I were able to meet them before they need me, because I feel like if they had a doula there, it would be such an easier transition into having a nanny. Just being used to having someone else in your house too, because I'm usually the first one in their house. Like sometimes the grandmothers or the mom-in-laws haven't even been there yet, and so it feels really foreign to them to have someone come into their house and start like making changes and doing things, and they're just like, what is happening? And you're like, it'll be better after a week, I promise. And then slowly but surely things are like, oh yeah, I need this. Yeah, you were right. But it does take it's a weird initial, like, that's why the trial period in my contract is so long, is because being with first time families, sometimes they realize that that's not what they want, and the mom ends up quitting her job and just staying home. I've had that happen quite a few times, just because it is so early after baby's born that, like, I personally couldn't imagine having to go back to work, but because of the system that we live in, like of the governments and the work environment and everything here in the US, like your maternity leave is pretty short, and employers are, for the most part, not that forgiving when you say that you want to stay home longer.
Right. Okay. Such a different system, because here, a lot of my clients take a year off, and most of that year is paid. I mean, it kind of goes down. You have how many months of being on full pay, and then it will maybe drop down to half pay, and then a little bit more, a little less towards the end. But a lot of my clients take a whole year off after they've had their babies. And yeah, it sounds like, gosh, the two roles sound very different. Very still caring for that new family. So I'm also a doula trainer, postnatal doula trainer. And on the course, we talk about being and doing. So you have doing doulas who will come in and do an awful lot of what you were talking about. So they're kind of the organizing, the cleaning, setting things up for the new family. And then we talk about the being doulas, which to an outsider looking in on a being doula, they'll think, but what is that person doing? Why have they been hired? Because they're just sat on the sofa chatting to this mom, and mom is holding the baby. What's going on here? This is nonsense. But actually, there's a lot to be said for the being doula. So what we tend to do is we can role model and almost set the pace for that new parent. So in our kind of quiet, slow ways, we're almost giving permission to the family to say, look, you don't have to rush around the house doing everything and rush around. Take it slowly, because your body's gone through an awful lot. Your emotions are all up and down the place. You're still learning your baby. The baby's still learning you. It's all very early days. So let's take it slow. So we almost kind of model that for the family. We're just, again, it can be hanging out, just chatting and having that reassurance. It can be demonstrating various childcare tasks like bathing the newborn baby, safe sleep, how to co-sleep safely in the bed with a parent if that's what they want. So it's a very kind of slow and a way of being, not rushing around. I always say to my parents who want to book me as a postnatal doula, I'm not a cleaner actually. So if you want your house cleaned, you'll need to hire a cleaner. I'm okay with putting the dishwasher on or, kind of wiping down the side. I do cook because I do enjoy cooking, so I'm happy to cook for the family. Again, it's kind of the slow cooking foods, no quick foods, no thrown together salads. We're looking at warming, keeping that mother nice and warm. So it's warming stews and soups and warming spices, nothing too hot and spicy, just warming that mom up, keeping her nice and warm to aid her recovery from birth. So what we do can look like nothing. It's the kind of the art of doing nothing but helpfully, if you can, that makes sense.
Yeah, because it is caring, but that is complete like opposite, I feel like, of what I end up doing. I sound like a doing doula because I'm the one that, like, I come in and I say, you can take baby in your bedroom and just have a relaxing day, or you can take a nap in a shower. I'll take baby, and while we're doing all of this, I'm going to clean your house and meal prep for the week, okay? So it ends up being, kind of, that's what I mean by the nanny household manager situation ends up including a little bit of laundry. I do the dishes. I do, I will sweep. I usually don't vacuum, but that's something I just don't like doing. I do feel like in that sense, I do a lot more of the doing. That's why I think that the kind of nanny, like a household manager nanny and a being doula, being in that household at the same time would be beautiful, because I usually allow the mom to have the time that she needs to talk through her feelings and to talk through things with other people. Like, I'm not the person she usually does that with. Sometimes she'll do that, they'll inevitably ask, for advice or opinions or thoughts or whatever, and I'll still talk to them. But for the most part, I come in and it's expected that, this is your time for you and you do what you want, but then I'm going to just be over here doing this other thing. And so it doesn't necessarily feel like it's a working with, in the sense that I'm here to relieve you, but not in the like collaborative, we're doing this project or activity together. A lot of times is not the case. So that is a very different world. I don't know if I'd be ready for that.
You'd be sat on your hands. You'd be dying to kind of dive in and do things. You'd have to sit on your hands, RAINEY. Actually, some doulas do the doing, and that's great. I just don't, because I think, actually, I think a lot of the doing can be done by somebody else a lot cheaper for that family. You could get a cleaner in to do all that. I mean, as a new doula, I was asked by a family to clean the windows and can I take down the curtains and clean the windows? Can I? And the dad of the family brought me in a stepladder one day into the kitchen and said, can I clean the kitchen cupboards way up high? I'm like, but I don't even climb ladders in my own home. Why am I going to climb ladders in your home? So, it's really important, I think, as doulas, when I train you doulas, to talk about having your boundaries. Because what I don't want people to do is to be compromising themselves and to feel really awful when they're going into the family, thinking, oh no, what are they going to ask me to do today? I scrubbed their toilets last week. What is it today? I don't want that. I want the doulas to enjoy their work, and I want the families to benefit from the work. I want it to be win-win, and not people to, because I used to dread it, like with this family, like, the ladders. I'm like, oh, what today? Last week they wanted the windows cleaning. What is it today? I don't want that for any other doula.
Yeah, and I think that that's so important that we all know what the different caregiver roles are, because then we can set the boundary and then say, if you're looking for this person, you need to hire someone, you need to hire a doula, you need to hire a midwife, you need to hire a house cleaner, you need to hire a household manager, because some nannies don't like taking even that role on, which is totally fair and understandable. But setting those boundaries, and then my extra punch is always, and having it in your contract so that you can physically point to it, because sometimes just saying them, the verbal boundaries, they get tossed out of the window, or forgotten or misunderstood or whatever. So having that in your contract to physically point to it is super important.
Yeah, we have contracts too. I have a contract that says that, you know, I don't iron my own clothes. I don't clean, you know.
Yeah.
I'm happy to do a little bit of shopping. Again, I'm not doing the whole month's shopping. I'm not like a pack horse, you know, coming with like bags and bags of shopping. I don't mind nipping out and getting a couple of bags of groceries or something. But yeah, I do what I do, and if they want somebody else, there's lots of other doulas around who can provide that service.
How do I become a doula? If it's something that, you know, is out there watching, they're like, okay, yeah, I want to become a doula. This is my jam. I want to have that as a service that I offer in adjacent or in conjunction with my nannying services, or just a separate thing. How do they go about that?
Okay, so you look around in your area. In fact, now if they're doing things on Zoom, it hasn't got to be in your area, but you look around for doula courses. And if you want it to be something certified, I think, is it DONA? They are a certification, in America. So have a look around at the courses. First of all, just do an online search, have a read through what they've put about their course content, see if what they've put aligns with you in your own kind of way of working, your own kind of principles, and then make a short list. Make a short list of, say, 3 or 4 trainings, and I would say call the people up, call up the trainer, and have a conversation with them, and just really, you know, have a nice long list of questions, ask them lots of questions, and again, find out if you feel aligned with that trainer and their trainings. You know, go with your gut feeling.
Okay.
It's not so much about how much it costs or the duration of it, or even sometimes the content. I would say with the content, just make sure that it's very inclusive. Make sure the inclusivity or anything around kind of cultural competency is not like a brief add-on that's done like on day 4 or 5 for half an hour. So I spoke about the Abuela Doula course. We have cultural safety and cultural competency running as a thread all the way through our course. It's not just a kind of an add-on at the end for half an hour, a bit of a tick box exercise. So whatever you feel strongly about and whatever your principles are, make sure that your doula training reflects those principles.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like that cultural thread would be super important, at least like not only for me personally, but in the area that I live in, it, you know, the states in general are kind of a melting pot, but specifically in the Pacific Northwest, it is a pretty melty. I mean, it's a melty pot, kind of like New York, like just everyone kind of ends up here for Seattle. And because it's a coastal, you know, location, and it's kind of a tech hub. And so we get a lot of different cultures in our area. I feel like that would be super important to be able to respect the cultural differences that different families have, especially in something as intimate as a doula.
Yeah, it is a very intimate service we're offering, whether it's birth or postpartum. It's a very intimate offering and service, and we need to make sure that we are doing it justice, that we aren't going in and actually causing harm with our kind of preconceived ideas or our, you know, isms. So it's really important that whatever training you choose has it as a thread running all the way through, and not a quick, yeah, we're going to talk about racism or we're going to talk about sexism for half an hour and that's it, we're done. That's not good enough.
Yeah. So then could you talk a little bit more about your training? Because obviously if we're watching this and we love you, then we've already talked to our trainer. So what is your training? What does it look like? If you don't mind sharing, like duration, prices, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So it's called the Abuela Sankofa course. Sankofa is an African concept, meaning to look back, to bring forward. So talk a lot about traditions, cultural traditions, and that could be anybody. People think, oh, cultural traditions is just about black or brown people. Everybody has cultural traditions. And so we talk and we share about those traditions that we have in the postpartum period. It may be things like recipes. It may be things like, so I wrap my new moms who've given birth, I wrap their bellies in a way it's actually taught from a Malaysian tradition. And I use a big long piece of fabric. It's called Beng Kung belly wrapping. And I wrap the mom if she requires it or requests it in a kind of a way that's quite intricate. It looks very, very beautiful. So we are reaching back to our own individual cultures and bringing those things forward because they're getting lost. So we talk about things like how to nurture. What does nurturing look like for a new family? We share recipes. We talk about our boundaries as doulas. What are the things we think we might like to offer and may not like to offer? I spoke about a business day. So we talk about the business of being a doula. We don't just plonk you, don't just kind of train you and say, that's it, you're off. We talk about, how are you going to package up your offerings? What are you bringing into your doula practice? Are you a previous massage practitioner? Are you a herbalist in another life? Are you a nanny in another life? Are you going to bring that? How are you going to bring that, package that up, and sell that to your clients? We talk about feeding, infant feeding. We talk about sleep. We talk about crying. We talk about the postnatal bodies, kind of what things are happening for the person who's given birth. We kind of have this kind of diagram that goes from the head right down to the toes, all the little things that are happening physically and emotionally for that person who's just giving birth. And how can we as doulas help? How can we help nourish and help that person recover from birth? We talk about different kinds of birth. Goodness, what don't we talk about really? We talk about listening. So active listening skills, listening with an open heart, not listening to respond. So being comfortable with silence and just, not kind of jumping in when there is a silence, because oftentimes doesn't need to be a word said. How you can be a doula rather than do as a doula. So all the things really that you need, that literally as you finish the course on day 4, it's a 4-day course, generally taught over 2 weeks, so two days 1 week and 2 the next. By day 4, you are now a doula. You can go and work. And what we encourage our doulas to do is to find a mentor. So we, as Abuela doulas, we have experienced doulas who act as mentors for the new doulas. And so that means that, we don't come along to work with you. We don't come along to the family's home with you. Basically, when you find your clients, we will be happy to talk and debrief jobs with you. How did it go? We help you to reflect on what happened, what could go better, what went really well. We help you to look at your pricing. We help to kind of steer you and say, let's get a website together, let's get you visible, let's get your social media going. So we're there almost as a kind of like a seasoned doula. We've been through it all ourselves, just to help guide and support these new doulas on their doula journey. And it's really important to have a mentor, because when you try and do it alone, it's very, very, very difficult.
Yeah. That's awesome. The more man, oh man, I'm just like, ooh, it sounds so good. So do you guys have then your own certificate? Because we know how much people love certificates.
And we talk about that too. So we have a certificate. In the UK, we have a big kind of umbrella organisation called Doula UK. And they have course providers under their umbrella. So if you are a Doula UK approved course provider, that's where a lot of people go for their courses. We are not overly keen on, well, I'm not overly keen, and a few other Black doulas aren't overly keen on how Doula UK have been operating. So we've actually come out, I'm still a member, but we're not teaching through them. So although we give you a certificate, it will not be a Doula UK certificate, it will be an Abuela doula certificate. And we talk a lot on the course about actually what is that piece of paper worth? Especially when we talk about other kind of complementary therapies like herbalism, and those things have been passed down through generations that never required certificates. It's almost like for you to become validated, you have to show a piece of paper, when actually a lot of the practices that have been passed down don't have certificates but have such value, and we're at risk of losing them because they don't have a certificate.
Yeah, that is literally beautifully spoken. That is the quote that should have went on the cover of that live that I did about certifications, because that is one thing that kind of, I'm not super pro adding a bunch of certifications behind your name, because if you have the experience, that is more important than the piece of paper. Because as a nanny, especially being early childhood educated certified, being developmental certified, and dealing with special needs certified, all these certifications, it's like, okay, but what if you've never been with a child?
Yeah. What if you don't know one end of a child from another? Like a lot of teachers, a lot of teachers in the earlier sector, because I've been trained as a nursery nurse, which was it was the course that I did was the gold standard of early years education back in the 80s, a long time ago. But it was very thorough. We covered everything, child development. We even were given speech lessons, because we were like, if you're going into nurseries, if you're going to be a nanny, you need to be able to enunciate your words properly and clearly, so that you're a good role model for the young kids. So it was, sewing lessons, cooking lessons. It was so thorough. But actually, as I said, what does it mean? Because parents, when I have parents contact me, they never ask for any of that, They never say, when you come for your doula interview, could you bring along your certificates? They don't ask. They're not interested.
Yeah, that's, you're speaking my love language. That's the thing that I'm just like, it doesn't matter. And that's why too, I think that in the sense of Ratatouille, I recently watched it, and so it's got on the mind. But in the sense of it, anyone can cook, anyone can do just about anything if you have the experience, if you have a way to get the experience. Which kind of leads me to, I didn't have this question before, but now I'm really curious, which is, what sort of like, so after your course, you said that before you were signed on with another like doula agency, so to speak. So how do you go about starting? Like, is that something that is covered in your class or in your mentorship about starting as a doula? Because if you have no experience, like, who's going to want you with their newborn?
Yeah, I mean, even though, yes, I was, when I first started to do my doula work, luckily I came with a whole, how many years of experience of working with families. So that stood me in very good stead. But what we generally advise new doulas to do is think about maybe just offering their service at a slightly reduced fee. When I say slightly reduced, I am not talking about free. I do not, this is one of my personal things, I do not agree that we should be offering our services for free, because you're putting your heart and your soul and so much love into this work that I think you should be rewarded financially for it. But I think as a new doula with less experience, it's reasonable to say, okay, I'm going to come in at this price point to gain my experience. And you can do that through, you've got the whole world of social media now, ahead of us. So you can make quite a very simple website. You've got your Instagram account, you've got your Facebook account, you've got your Twitter account. Before, pre-COVID, you could have gone to like baby events, We have a baby shop here called Mother Care, and they would hold monthly events for new parents, so they can demo their strollers and their bits and bobs, all that rubbish you buy. And they would invite you, so you could go along and have a stall and say, hi, I'm your local doula, this is what doulas do, and have you ever thought of having a doula? There's so many things that you can do to get yourself out there. You've just got to be brave and be bold, because I know a lot of my new doulas are, I can't do it, Lorna, I can't do it, but you know what? You're gonna have to. I'll hold your hand a bit, but you're gonna have to just launch yourself. Otherwise, who's gonna know that you're out there? I'm not gonna come to you, So it's just putting yourself out there and attracting your kind of ideal client.
Yeah, I love it. I want you as my mentor. Man, this has been such a great interview. Like, oh, I love it. So I did have a few more questions. I don't know the answer for the states, so I would have to look it up. But is a doula covered by insurance of any kind? Or like, is there some kind of system in place where they could get funding, support, financial support to hire a doula? Or is it something just completely separate?
Okay, so the first thing is, our health system is different to yours. So we don't have the whole medical insurance thing, even though, so we have the NHS, so everyone can access the NHS and have free care. If you want extra, then you can pay and get a private health insurance, but generally we're covered by the NHS. So doulas are not provided by the NHS, they're a private service that you have to pay for. And we do have various doula projects around the UK. They tend to be run by volunteer doulas who will get their expenses paid. So they will volunteer their time to support families through birth and the postnatal period and have their expenses paid generally. When you said insurance at first, I was thinking actually doula insurance, because some doulas like to have insurance for when they go and work in people's homes. So do you have nanny insurance? Do you insure yourself when you work in people's homes or not?
So you can, but you don't have to. It's kind of an interesting thing. This is so cool that we have both sides. Because as a household employee nanny, the household kind of covers you. Like, you don't actually have to have any insurance because they're taking you on as an employee. So they're pretty much taking on all responsibility for everything you do. As a self-employed nanny, you should have, like, you do add on extra car insurance for having kids in your car that aren't yours. You have a business liability insurance that you can get because as a self-employed nanny, you're saying my business is bringing a service to you and fulfilling, that service. So if something were to go wrong, like I don't even know, but it would be covered by your business insurance. Like, I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but basically if you did if you had any like malpractice, kind of like how they have malpractice suits for doctors. If you did anything like that and they came at you to sue you, they would actually be suing your business, and your business could have some insurance behind it for any kind of liability in that sense. But a lot of that stuff I feel like could be covered in your contract, just saying like, I am not responsible for any medical harm, or I am not responsible for anything. So having that in your contract, I feel like usually covers you well enough that we don't have to have an insurance that we pay for to cover us. Yeah,
that's what I believe too. And so I only had doula insurance when I worked for a doula project, providing my services for people, because they said as a doula project, we need you to be insured. But in my own private practice, I actually don't have insurance because I am very clear. So first of all, I have a very clear contract, but also I'm very clear on what my boundaries are and what my roles are. So when I'm a birth doula, I am literally rubbing mom's back. I am holding her hand. I'm making sure that she's drinking and eating during labor. There's nothing there that can be deemed as malpractice. I'm not examining her. I'm not saying, I'm not there trying to catch her baby. I'm there to be her birth partner. So when you're very clear about your boundaries and your role as a doula, then I think actually you will come to the conclusion that you won't need that insurance because you're doing nothing dodgy or risky.
Yeah. So, quick side question. This was not planned at all, but do you have your contract available for people who take your training, or do you sell your contract? Or like, is there a way to get a hold of this amazing sounding contract?
No. There is not.
Anyway, so if we want to go ahead and wrap up, where can people find you? What do you offer? Where are you in the world? What should we remember?
Yeah, okay. So you can find me on the socials. I'm on Instagram, kind of Twitter. I don't really use Twitter very much, but you can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook at Birmingham Doula. Kind of all one word, really. So BIRMINGHAMDOULA, Birmingham Doula. And so I'm in Birmingham. Please, I have so many people from Birmingham, Alabama saying, can you be my doula? I'm like, no, I'm a little too far. Birmingham, UK is where I'm at, centre of England. I'm a hypnobirthing teacher. Actually, if anybody from the States wants to learn the tools that will bring you through pregnancy and labour really smoothly, I teach a method called hypnobirthing. So you're not hypnotized, you're not going to be like, ah. I teach you breathing techniques and tracks and scripts. It's also a full antenatal course too. It's also a full birth prep course, and I do it online via Zoom, just to kind of teach you how to keep calm and manage your fears during labour. And that's a very popular one at the moment. So I do that too. But yeah, reach out, if anybody wants to get in touch, I'm at Birmingham Doula.
Cool. That sounds awesome. Thank you all for watching. If you have any questions, again, comment below. If they are specifically doula related or they're questions specifically for Lorna, I will forward them on to her, or you can directly message her yourself. I will leave her, like I said, linked everywhere. And I will have more interviews coming up, and I will share them like usual on Saturdays at the latest, sometimes Fridays if I'm feeling extra productive that week, but Saturdays at the latest. And so in the meantime, I will see you next week. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.